David Eberhardt, who some of you may know. David Eberhardt was born March 26, 1941. As a peace protester, he was incarcerated at Lewisburg Federal Prison in 1970 for 21 months for pouring blood on draft files with Father Philip Berrigan and two others to protest the Vietnam War. He's retired after 33 years of work in the criminal injustice system as a director of offender aid and restoration at the Baltimore City Jail. David has published 3 books of poetry: The Tree Calendar, Blue Running Lights, and poems from the website Poetry in Baltimore. And he's currently at work on a memoir, which I am really excited about reading, called For All the Saints, influenced by Thoreau, Nabokov, Mailer, Matheson, Lecky, Thomas, and Cousteau. Please welcome David Eberhardt.
How's this sound? Is this good?
Yes.
Origins of the Baltimore Four. As recounted in the Murray Polner book, Disarmed and Dangerous, Phil Berrigan had arranged a meeting between members of the Baltimore Peace Mission and Philip Hirschkopf, a lawyer in Alexandria, Virginia. Phil opened the meeting by informing Hirschkopf that the group had been considering a plan to blow up the U.S. Customs House in Baltimore, where thousands of military draft files were stored, but wanted to keep the action nonviolent by ensuring that no one would be anywhere near the building. Hirschkopf said that Hirschkopf, who says we suggested arson, said, "My God, don't do that," and then jumped out of his chair and ran from the office. I don't remember any of this, but it's the way it was happening according to peace movement activist and friend Bill O'Connor. Hirschkopf told me later that he did not run from the office shaken. He ducked into the hall to avoid being part of a conspiracy. But Bill says he and the others, which would have included me, had to search up and down the halls before finding the shaken lawyer and guiding him back behind closed doors. Phil, according to Bill, adjusted to Hirschkopf's alarm by disclosing our group's plan B, to enter the draft board and jam up its door locks with a jelly-like substance. What, he wanted to know, is the legality of such a protest. Hirschkopf thought it over and suggested the group do something less serious, like pour blood or honey or red paint on the locks. That way, he said, you'll avoid doing serious property damage while making a symbolic point. On the drive back home, Phil derided Hirschkopf's idea as the tepid proposal of just another bourgeois lawyer. But, Murray Polner writes, pouring blood in a draft office struck David Eberhardt as a prophetic stroke worthy of the biblical prophets, Amos and Hosea. Phil began to change his mind. I remember the part about the prophets and discussing the blood at Howard Johnson's restaurant on New York Avenue. My memory blurs the events. Writing things down is an attempt to capture the truth. What actually happened? What we remember may differ from what actually happened. I definitely remember the most momentous events in my life, partly the theme of this book. The events may help me understand myself only upon later reflection. The fact that my version may not square perfectly with the facts, the realization that there are details of the action unfamiliar to me, annoys me to this day. It's not enough to be included in the events gone by. I want the right details. As time passes, my memory makes a necklace of my peace movement past, stringing the dates together like so many beads. But time happens to each of us like the string itself, without any pearls or polished gems. For memory, consider the image of a library. The synapses flash, and the moment of the past presents itself boldly. Sometimes I want to tidy up and go back over my memories as if I could organize them better. Layers upon layers, how the brain works, firing, the smells, soy and ginger. Or as described by the great American poet, William Matthews, in A Happy Childhood. It turns out you are the story of your childhood, and you're under constant revision, like a lonely folk tale whose invisible folks are all the selves you've been lifelong. Shadows and fog, gray glimmers of dusk, and each of these selves had a childhood. Phil Hirschkopf and I may have thought up the blood pouring, but without Commandante Phil Berrigan, you best believe it would not have happened. Is this about to fall on my
No, I just
lap?
want to make sure that it comes to your mouth.
Okay. Since 1960, poetry and now prose, and it reminds me of the county fair in Vermont, where as a kid I would watch the horses team up to carry, how far could they carry, how fast, giant slabs of concrete. That was moving to prose after poetry. Anyway, going to the farm camp from the Wall, which was the main prison at Lewisburg, that'll be all right, was refreshing. And I had done about 4 months inside the big institution, rooming with Phil. Farm camp was minimum security. The din and roar of eventful current that had swept me for 4 years subsided as I moved to the Lewisburg farm camp. I was able to relax a bit from the landscape of issues into a landscape of interesting human faces, my fellow cons. My first job assignment was an easy one, wiping tables in the dining room. My co-worker, Joey, the mafia guy, who had also just arrived from the Wall, the main prison, needed light work. He entered prison with 4 bullet wounds to the stomach and they weren't draining properly. Carmine Galente was showing him around. The two approached me, Carmine fingering the required Mafia De Nobili cigar in its holder. Now, Joey, this here's Eberhardt. Eberhardt, I want you to make it easy for Joey here. Got bad health. Joey, this here's a good kid. He'll show you the ropes. He's one of the Berrigan gang, you know? The priest and them nuns and so forth. Yeah, the father, Joe says devoutly. Ain't it a shame? Many pheasants in the cornfields around the farm presented romantic images. Hunters couldn't follow them onto the reservation. Inmates were allowed to trap them and put them in crates for shipment to sparsely pheasanted parts of Pennsylvania, or maybe the banquet tables of federal prison officials. If we were on one of the outdoor crews, we could stop to visit the pheasants in the tractor shed and admire them, glum but fierce, piercing out between the slats of their little imprisoning lobster trap crates. They were easier to notice in the fall when the corn had been cut. Burningly phosphorescent males looked like freedom as they scooted up out of the cut corn stalks with a whistling sound to escape. Males with iridescent vests for courtship displays. This is my Dylan Thomas part, I guess. Like those of pigeons, or like blushes of purple tetrafish, reminding me of my sexuality, how much I miss Louise. Or beautiful privacy and meditation as they flew up in the evening to roost in skeletal trees. Always they were gorgeous with strange autumnal hues, coppery chests, freckled like those in the tubes of iris flowers, like the shimmering markings on an eye's iris. The pheasants had white rings around their necks, which inmates dearly loved to ring. The pheasants were delicious, cooked between the rungs of our radiators. Prisons are kept hot, lethargy results. But to feather, gut, and joint them, it helped to know someone in the butcher shop. Winters, the pheasants would sometimes make the mistake of flying over the main prison wall to look for food on the ground over steam pipes where the snow had melted. In a fabled convict story, an inmate had caught one from his cell window by dangling a pin bent fishhook style on the end of a line. Imagine the raucous squawking in the clear blue Allegheny air. In the mornings, our work crew dozed toward winter in the general farm shed, the work of the year largely done, root cellar filled to capacity with apples, potatoes. Zillions of snowflakes blitzed the surrounding fields until they looked like flakes of sugar-frosted cereal. The snow wiped out the vista of the far blue mountains, and we could only see the minute details of close black and white plowed land looming bitterly, larger and larger. We could feel the full weight of our unjust sentences, time itself an unjust sentence. Did we deserve this? We were almost tricked into wondering the slave's terrible question, had we not chosen to be here? Wasn't this our fault? We could interiorize our sentences and grow to accept them, a final brutality as the snow came in on a slant over the ridges, beauty and horror together. But we war protesters were not alone. We had loved ones and vast support systems. Christmas brought us cards from all over the world, even North Vietnam. We had belief, thus could laugh at our situation, be sarcastic and angry. We would never become losers like some of the regular cons, for we knew our mission. We knew who we were. Society might despise us, but deep down, it knew we were right. Or did it? We took our place beside the common car thieves and bank robbers. Pheasants are so dumb, they will enter a wire cage trap, unable to retrace their steps out of the little hatch to freedom. And society stands behind the prisoner, smugly saying, "You've seen people like this too. You've seen it happen to them." Undoubtedly, many of the inmates would return to crime upon release, as we all return to the ruts in our mind that are familiar. We knew the way back, but we protesters rejected the society and its ruts. And so, in a way, we were free.